Hey everyone, Aidan here. So previously on the Discussion Alliance, Kyle and I talked about the top 12 worst story arcs in the Clone Wars. So for this episode, we're going to talk about the 12 best story arcs in Star Wars The Clone Wars. So with that, enjoy the video, and may the Force be with you.
Here comes our top 12 right here.
Oh boy, here we go.
We can just go 12, 11, 10. We'll just go down from there.
Yeah, we'll just go down. So starting at the 12th best episode arc of Clone Wars, we have the second Battle of Geonosis.
Yeah, 5 episodes, which was the only 5-episode arc
that we found.
And, I mean, technically the first episode of this arc, which I actually completely forgot, which earlier we mentioned how Rush Clovis was briefly seen in one episode. He was seen in the first episode of this arc, and it was pretty much, again, a little bit of that romantic tension between Padme and Rush Clovis, and it's pretty much the discovery of a new droid factory in Geonosis, which we first knew about in the Battle of Geonosis in Attack of the Clones.
The first Battle of Geonosis.
Fight. Yeah, that's where the first fight of the Clone Wars happens. And the whole point of this arc is pretty much the fact that Geonosis was left untouched after that, but during that time, the Separatists were rebuilding stuff on that planet.
Yeah.
And so this whole thing is a big invasion of the planet, and we're focusing on a small part, which of course follows Anakin, Ahsoka, Obi-Wan, and Ki-Adi-Mundi, which was an interesting touch.
Yeah.
A Jedi that we don't really see that often.
Yep.
It was pretty much a 3-push. The landing scene, I think everyone considers iconic. It's pretty much just this major offensive of 3 different attack groups going towards the main droid factory in the planet.
Yeah.
This big charge as they deal with challenges and trying to get there. And then
I think it
was 5 episodes. Jeez,
wasn't that also like the introductious? What's that word? Never heard of the introduction. I'm pretty sure of Luminara Unduli and her apprentice Barriss Offee.
So the 3rd episode, after they successfully invade the planet and they're starting to take out key places, the weapons factories in the 3rd episode, and they, like you said, they introduced Barriss Offee, who is the apprentice / Padawan of Luminara Unduli, who is a Jedi I think we only saw before that in. I'm trying to remember. I think actually in the new Gunray arc, we saw.
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
Yeah, but other than that, we only saw her as just an unnamed character, pretty much.
And this was also when
Attack of the Clones.
This was also when Ahsoka and Barriss started becoming friends.
Yeah. This was the introduction of their friendship, and pretty much them almost sacrificing themselves to take down a weapons factory, which is the first and only time we see this sort of super tank that the Separatists.
Yeah, that was a whole ordeal.
We're definitely have to throw some photos up, but it's just pretty much this giant tank with some crazy shields on them and it just was firing rockets like it was nothing.
Yeah, and then also after that, there was the whole thing where there were zombie Geonosians.
Yeah, this was sort of split into like a 3-part within the arc, but it's all connected very well. You got the first part, which is the discovery of the factory, the second and third episode, which is the destruction of the factory and the whole Battle of Geonosis, and then the last 2 was sort of like the aftermath, and they sort of took on a sci-fi sort of, the movie Aliens, that whole movie.
Yep, that franchise.
Sort of like it almost took on this like 1980 sci-fi creepy, like. To take to it, which was interesting.
Yeah,
and it's pretty much they're trying to track down. His name is Poggle the Lesser, who's the leader of the Geonosians, and they end up finding this creepy old temple where the queen of their hive is, which is sort of a reminder of the fact that the Geonosians are bugs. So this gets into like disgusting insect stuff and these wormy things which control
these parasitic worms that possess anyone it goes through.
These were very cool episodes. Most people probably remember them as like
I'm also
really disgusted out.
I'm also just thinking of like where do you think they'll put it in? The mouth or the nose?
Oh yeah, that episode. Yeah.
Oh, and it's
That,
like,
it was pretty much
I
yeah,
want to
Summer
know how this works.
54 episodes.
I want to know how this works. I'm pretty sure Master Luminara doesn't want to. I'd very much not want to, or something like that. That was
No,
funny.
that's spot on. That's spot on.
That's funny.
So it's pretty much just 2 episodes
Yeah.
of discovering it. They get almost like Alien in a sense, and then
Yeah, and then in the last
they end up
episode,
defeating it by turning on the cold, pretty much. Remember?
yeah,
to turn on your
it was
AC
the last. It was the last episode of that arc, and a bunch of the clone troopers were possessed by the parasites, and yeah,
But
it
happy
was this
ending,
whole
they
deal,
make it to a medical station. They figure everything out.
and they survive. Yay!
Yeah.
Happy endings all around.
But it was a very overall, very exciting and neat arc.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
So
Enough with that. Let's
next,
go to
with
the
our 11th best, we got the Citadel arc, which was in season 3 and had 3 episodes.
Yeah, this is when we started hitting. This was probably the point where this was like unrulingly like difficult to start choosing which ones we liked the most.
Oh yeah. By the time we got to the top 11, it was like, oh boy, let's figure this out. And so
Citadel, 3 episodes, just about the end of season 3. I believe. I don't think
yeah,
it was the
probably.
very end,
But
because after that, yeah, it was just about at the end.
yeah, and it was this one of the Jedi Masters was captured, as well as their
pretty
team.
much taken to a prison.
And so it was up to Anakin and Obi-Wan, Ahsoka, and some of the 501st to get them out. And you know what? Want to know what their their genius plan was? Freezing themselves in carbonite, as well as reprogramming some battle droids so they could get in.
Yeah, pretty much sneaking into. Apparently, it was the Citadel was a prison that was originally made to imprison fallen Jedi, so Jedi who had gone bad. But then apparently it was captured by the Separatists. So now the Separatists are just using it as a prison to take
Just for
prisoners of war, and especially those who are important. And the Master who was captured and some of his troops had plans or had data that revealed secret passageways pretty much throughout the galaxy.
yeah, and this was also I'm pretty sure this was also
Spacelines.
I'm pretty sure this was also the episode that introduced Tarkin.
Yeah, Tarkin, as we all know, is the General.
I forget.
Admiral, Grand Admiral, but he's the guy who's famous when you may fire when ready. He's the guy who is greedy and takes the Death Star. And
Became the Grand Moff of the Empire.
Moff, that's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was
pretty much we see them conduct a rescue operation. That is pretty much the premise of this whole arc.
Yeah, it's just like a rescue heist.
It's very cool though.
It was very cool, but that was also when we lost Echo. One of
the ARC troopers.
Well, spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't seen season 7, Echo came back. Surprisingly.
Yeah. and he's in the Bad Batch, so.
Yeah, so. But yeah, this was a very impactful arc. I mean, like it didn't add anything to the plot or anything, but it was just
it was a very good story.
Yeah. And I don't really have anything else to add on to it, so.
No, but I don't think so, really.
All right.
At the end, I just remember this. There's no, I don't know how to say this. Not controversy. Whatever. I can't find words right now. Pretty much, the Master who was carrying the data revealed at one point that Tarkin had half the data, so they had split it in case one of them broke, as in revealed the information.
Yeah.
But the Master had died during the escape and gave the information verbally to Ahsoka. So they get back to Coruscant. And now it's time to reveal that data that they collected. The problem is Tarkin said that he was told to only give it to Palpatine.
Oh,
and
no.
Ahsoka was told to only give it to the Jedi Council.
Oh,
so
boy.
This was a split of power thing. So we got to the point
That's a problem.
This was pretty much Sidious/Palpatine's use of trying to gain more information of these hyperspace lanes, which he would probably give to, or he definitely gave to the Separatists at one point. Because although it's not in the show, there's the whole Battle of Coruscant and stuff like that.
Yeah.
How those hyperspace lands were how the Separatists got to Coruscant in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And did a sneak attack, which we know is what happens at the beginning of Revenge of the Sith. That whole mess.
Right. All right. Well, on to the next one. The slavery arc. So this is with the Togrutas being enslaved by Zygerians. Yep. And so it's up to our main our quartet, Anakin, Obi-Wan, Ahsoka, and Rex, to figure out everything that has happened, as well as taking down the Zygerian operation.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't remember, Ahsoka is also a Togruta, which is the name of their species. And so this is sort of like a bit of a home episode for her.
Yeah.
So pretty much her people are taken as slaves by a Separatist invasion who are working with the Zygerian Empire, which is pretty much this species which is famous for having slaves pretty much from all over the galaxy.
Yeah, they have a slave operation.
And so they've been trying to rebuild their slave empire because the Republic versus Separatists, the Clone Wars is going on. There's not a lot of regulation going on inside them. I mean, the Republic doesn't necessarily have time to fight against a slave empire when they're fighting a massive Separatist army.
Yeah, this is one of the more interesting arcs because, they're just trying to take it down, and it's done in many different ways.
A lot. I guess a lot of it was. I mean, it's definitely like an anti-slavery
kind of thing.
I mean, they definitely point out the bads and stuff like that. But they also try to do a little bit, I guess, to at least with like the Queen, try to look at some of the goods of them, like
the
definitely not
benefits
trying
of them.
to justify slavery in any way, but putting into perspective that like although this person has slaves and they consider it good, there are other aspects of their personality which are genuinely good, just not, of course, the slavery part.
Correct.
Like the Queen, for example, was nice to Anakin. I mean, they show that she actually liked him a bit.
Woo! Because Anakin just has that charm.
that was the whole point. He's a player. But they were trying to also show the fact that like even this massive slave empire was being manipulated by Count Dooku, who eventually tries to take control of it at the end and does so successfully.
Right.
So they like most of it is like no to slavery, definitely, but it also focuses on the background of like how this came to be and who is really at power of this whole situation.
Right.
So it was definitely very unique.
Yeah.
And it all works out. The wolf pack gets involved. They help rescue the Togrutas.
Yeah, there was even like one point where they tried to bring down the Empire, the Zygerian Empire, but unfortunately it backfired. I think it was for the execution of Obi-Wan Kenobi, and it was like they tried but ultimately failed. Obi-Wan and Anakin were overwhelmed. Ahsoka had a shock collar around her neck, so there was that. And
they also had R2-D2 with them. I know it's random, but
yeah. So they kind of did something similar to what Luke Skywalker did in Return of the Jedi. However, unlike what Luke did, it ultimately backfired.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah, I guess you can make that connection.
Yeah. Well, yeah, just like father, like son, I guess.
Yep. All right. Well, that was number 10.
All right, now
we're in the top 10 now. Let's go to 9.
All right, so here we have the Bad Batch introduction. This was like in season 7. It was 4 episodes long, and this just introduced the Bad Batch, like who they were, what they did as a team. And as we all know, the Bad Batch is like a 4 to 5 person group.
I mean, like you said, this was an intro, so this was focusing a lot on developing their characters
for their spin-off show.
Yeah, which yes becomes the Bad Batch TV show, which is already has 2 seasons, and they're gonna have a final third coming up next year, I believe. Right?
I think so.
Yeah, I believe it's next year. Next spring they'll release the final season.
Yeah.
But this intro, I mean, it's higher up on the list. That's for sure. I still think it's a little bit in that middle ground. That's why it's in this middle
Yeah.
section because I mean, I'll also start with like, sort of like the negatives, which there aren't that many, but it's pretty much like a lot of his introduction stuff, which if you were to rewatch it, is sort of like,
Uh-huh.
oh, I already know this. But
Yeah.
they bring back Echo. They show the Battle of Anaxis. They show the trade union, which they bring back Vacuum Bag Boy, and they show a battle with natives. I mean, they cover a lot of territory in this arc while also introducing the Bad Batch. So it was definitely fun to watch. Lots of battle stuff, space battles. They had Mace Windu and Obi Wan Kenobi with the 212th, and
Mm-hmm.
forgot the number, but pretty much Mace Windu clone troopers. And it was very fun to watch. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it was
I mean, I don't even know if there's much more to say other than yeah, that's what it
yeah, it
was.
was a good it was a introduction. There were some nitpicks about it, but otherwise it was really good.
Oh yeah, wait. So it's 2 small bits. They show that they reveal that Kenobi knows about Anakin's relationship with Padme,
Mm-hmm.
and the fact that Rex knows about it too.
Oh yeah.
And then they also show a little bit of Anakin's dark side when he kills Admiral Trench, who's a notable sort of bad guy general for the Separatists that they brought back for
I
this.
don't have such weaknesses.
And then he says, it's something like, "It was nice talking with you, Captain." And then, of course, Trench falls over dead. But yeah,
Uh-huh.
that was that. All right.
Right. Moving on. We're going on to the Onderon arc. Which, oh boy. That was quite an interesting one.
4 episodes in season 5. This one was focusing pretty much on a resistance on the planet of Onderon, which was, in a sense, just annexed by the Separatists.
Yes. And so, run by Saw and Stila Guerrera, they. Yeah, that's right. Her name is Stila.
Yeah. Saw Gerrera, which many of you
Would know
I mean,
from
yes,
like.
he was in this arc. He was in the Rebels, but most notably, he was the leader of the split off resistance group, rebel group in Rogue One.
Yes. And so.
They get help from, of course, Ahsoka, Obi-Wan, and
Yeah, and then there was also.
and at one point Rex.
Yes, and there was also Lux Bonteri, if you remember him. He was the son of a separatist senator who
Yeah,
ultimately was killed because of what she did.
yeah. She was trying to look for peace, and Count Dooku, of course, with his
He,
plans with
he was like,
Sidious.
nah. It's like,
So
nah, screw that.
That's part of. It gets revealed in other episodes, but that's part of Lux Bonteri's drive to fight against the Separatists.
Yeah.
And Onderon is his home too.
Yes, that is correct. And it's like this was already like shown in that part of the show, but there seems to be some romantic energy emitting from Lux and Ahsoka.
That was a good description of it. Romantic energy.
Yeah, and
I
it
mean,
was.
this was very clear. Was that?
It seemed like they had emotional attachment to one another.
But also, let's see. Stila Guerrera likes Lux though, so it's sort of like.
So there's again like this whole, like this little romantic tension. However, we know that Ahsoka doesn't act similarly to Anakin. She keeps her emotions in check. There is a little jealousy though. There's a little bit.
Yeah. Definitely. No, they show that in like facial expressions, but also some of her actions. But also, I mean, she does her best to stick to the Jedi Order and the rules, pretty much like no forming attachments.
Yeah, there can't be any
You
attachments
can see
whatsoever.
like her wanting to go out of her way and like be with Lux, but at the same time
She
is
can't.
loyal and like restricted to
Exactly.
the order that she's placed in oath to.
Yeah, and it was just, yeah, generally it was a really good arc. It just kind of showed, like, even the smaller people, not smaller people, I shouldn't say it like that, but people that aren't able to get support from the Republic and whatever. Uh,
Yeah, it was sort of showing the unfortunate unequal use of power by the Senate of the Republic, and even just like showing the fact that not everyone's treated, not all the planets are treated equally. It's like
yeah,
although
exactly.
Onderon was annexed, which the Republic sort of let that happen. Also, they sort of say that Onderon, the people itself, sort of let themselves get annexed. But the fact that the Republic, there's an emergency call when the rebels are fighting the separatists, and Ahsoka was the last one to stay to help guide them and whatnot. And she
Yeah,
still feels
yeah.
over the fact that their whole job by the Republic was to guide them and not fight for them. But there's moments where she has to fight for them for her survival, but also
Exactly.
for friends. And so, but she makes a call to Obi-Wan and Anakin, and pretty much you can see Anakin's furious, and Obi-Wan's just doing his best to keep his composure. But pretty much they're saying that they asked the Council and the Republic's just not willing to send resources at that
Yeah.
time to go help them, even though it was at a pivotal point of their battle against the Separatists on Onderon. And sort of just
Mm-hmm.
revealed the fact that, I mean, lots of episodes did this, especially with, like, for example, Padme or Senate work
Mm-hmm.
and all this uncovering, but the fact that the Republic was not perfect.
Right. And that there was some corruption in some way.
I mean, yeah, corruption that went beyond Sidious himself.
Oh, yes. Most certainly. Yeah, and this was just dove into a lot of interesting things. Oh boy, we're about to hit an hour and a half on this, so might want
Well,
to.
we're almost to the end. This is good stuff.
I
This is
know, I
good.
know, I know. Anyway, so on to the
We're in
seventh.
the top seven here.
On
Yep.
the seventh best arc was when Obi-Wan went undercover as a bounty hunter.
Yeah, this one was. I mean, the whole fact that they show that there's technology that existed for him to, in a sense, like transform into someone else, was very crazy, but also very cool.
Yeah, exactly. It was just a lot. Like, really, a
Yeah,
lot happened in
I mean,
that time.
there were four parts. I mean, there was pretty much them chasing down a bounty hunter. Well, oh my god, yeah. There's so much. I'll try to pretty much, yeah. Obi-Wan goes undercover as this bounty hunter to join a group of bounty hunters that are pretty much, in a sense, applying to work for a separatist plot to kidnap the Chancellor, which is Palpatine.
Mm-hmm.
And Obi-Wan is able to like stop it from fully completing, but he also discovers that at some point Count Dooku figured out that it was him,
Mm-hmm.
and that they didn't end up getting to capture Count Dooku also. That's pretty
Yeah.
much all. But also, in order for him to become this bounty hunter, he had to fake his death.
Yep.
So this showed a huge tension between Anakin and Obi Wan.
Well, and it also made like a. Um, just he had if Anakin believed that Obi-Wan was dead, that would also make Dooku believe he was dead as well. So
Yeah,
it was done for the right thing. However, it was, I will be honest, it was
it came at a
deceptive.
cost.
Came at the cost of Anakin's trust with Obi-Wan
Yeah.
a little bit. Yeah, and it was also nice to see Cad Bane again too.
Oh, yeah, he is definitely sort of like Boba Fett, like one of those side bounty hunter characters that are just iconic.
Oh yeah. Definitely, and it was just really nice to see him, as well as what was the other guy, because I could never remember his name, but there was a third guy who was behind organizing Palpatine's kidnapping.
Oh, the bad guy. Oh, I'm forgetting his name. Yeah, but he's pretty much just a separatist guy who is
Yeah,
placed in charge of putting together the whole mission.
right. Yeah, he was in charge of operating the mission. In charge of, yeah.
Yeah, I'm forgetting his name, but we can throw again with all these. We'll throw pictures up.
Yes.
All right.
All right. So next up, we have the Mandalore Civil War. So this was season 5, and it was 3 episodes long. Please excuse my dogs; they are barking in the background.
All good.
Yeah, but anyway, the Mandalore Civil War. This is when Death Watch run into Darth Maul and Savage Opress. Yeah, spoiler alert for anyone who was not aware. Darth Maul survived the fall from Phantom Menace, and he has a brother.
I mean, we assume at this point that all of you know this since you're listening to this, but just in case,
Oh, yeah.
fill in the details like we usually do.
Yep.
Yeah, there's more episodes that show the backstory, but Savage Opress and
Darth Maul,
same species, run into the Death Watch, and since they're craving power, they pretty much use the Death Watch to grow a crime syndicate, a big, massive, collected crime syndicate. And the Death Watch, Pre Vizsla, at all costs is trying to take back Mandalore. So Darth Maul pretty much uses this to his advantage, that sort of eager blindness to obtain power by tricking Pre Vizsla into thinking that they'll help. And then once they take over Mandalore from the peaceful, like anti-war Mandalorians,
yeah,
Duchess Satine, he takes out Pre Vizsla in a one-on-one, which by code
makes him leader of Death Watch as well as the ruler of Mandalore.
And so that begins the rift within the Mandalorian, within Death Watchers, where we see Bo-Katan take sort of a large portion of Death Watch and become sort of like a resistance.
Yeah, and
so
then
Obi-Wan comes to rescue. This is another one, sort of like Onderon, where like the Republic isn't willing to, also because of treaties, isn't willing to send a whole army to Mandalore because they're a neutral system. So Obi-Wan goes alone. He gets captured. Satine dies, which is crazy. It was sort of this was sort of building on Darth Maul's want to
like just anger,
revenge, have revenge against Obi-Wan.
Yeah,
but in this case, he didn't want to kill Obi-Wan.
He just wanted him to feel how he felt.
Feel pain.
Yeah, exactly.
But Obi-Wan gets rescued by Bo-Katan, who we also realize is sisters with Satine.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Bo-Katan we later see in The Mandalorian, which was a big one.
And Rebels.
Oh, yeah, and Rebels.
Yeah.
She sort of looks a little goofy in that animation, I'll admit that.
Yeah.
But...
Oh, and didn't Palpatine, like, go to Mandalore at some point?
At the last episode, Palpatine, he, like, senses that, like, after Darth Maul and Savage Opress have carried out all these actions, they're ruling Mandalore. I mean, they're a powerful force now with a massive galaxy-wide crime syndicate at their side. Mm-hmm. And so, but Palpatine senses this, and so he calls for his ship. He chokes out some Mandalorians using the Force, and he duels Savage Opress and Darth Maul, and he ends up killing Savage Opress. And then I don't really understand the whole thing with Darth Maul, because the last thing we see is him using his Force lightning
on Maul.
But he doesn't kill Maul, which is weird, because next thing we know, when we come back to it, Mandalore, Darth Maul still retains power, which is weird.
Yeah, that is a bit weird.
But again, there was 7 years between those episodes.
So
between the Civil War and the next time we see Mandalore.
So remember.
To tie it together.
Well, remember this. There's Palpatine didn't say he wanted to kill Maul. He said he
Well,
had
yeah.
other uses. So
Oh, yeah, he was using that as a way. Maybe, I don't know, you could speculate his way to sort of draw away Ahsoka, draw away troops. I don't know.
yeah,
Yeah.
maybe.
Or again, just using him as a way to just be another distraction for the Republic
Mm-hmm.
instead of just solving that situation.
Yeah.
And yeah, Mandalore Civil War, number 6.
Yep. All right. Top
Here we have the
5.
top 5.
Here we
Jeez.
go. Oh
Here
boy.
we go.
So at
Yeah,
number
these are hard
5.
to put in order, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But we felt like, in the end, this is a very justifiable order, especially with their relevance in the whole story of Star Wars, and also one of them, admittedly, is just a favorite of ours that we just felt like had to
Uh-huh.
be up here.
Yeah, so first off in the top 5 part is the inhibitor chips arc from season 6. This is 4 episodes long. And
This was with Fives. Focus a lot with Fives, the clone trooper, ARC trooper,
yeah,
and dealing with one of his friends who
who's
pretty much
in
has like a brain malfunction. You can think of it as
yeah, his inhibitor chip. Something happened and so his order 66 stuff just kicked in earlier than was planned.
it was during a battle
Yeah,
on
and
Ringo
he
Vinda. That was the name of the planet. We got to see
yeah.
some really cool clone troopers such as Commander Doom and his outfit, which had like gray, gold, and green
Mhm.
colored arm, which was very cool. And these twin Jedi, but
Yeah, but one of them
like you said,
dies.
Tup's chip goes off. It just malfunctions pretty much. He like unawareingly like just shoots one of the twin Jedi, and it totally breaks apart their assault on the planet.
Yeah, and so then there's investigations taking place of like what happened, and then Fives ends up getting deeper into it than anyone else, finding out that they all have inhibitor chips in
And
their
that
each
knows are
clone.
behind it all.
Yeah, and
It's pretty much
unfortunately,
it. And he figures out that there's like this huge plot. He doesn't understand their full use, but he knows that like they can be used for bad.
yeah, and little does and seriously, nobody knows that about this except for Fives. But when he tries to tell them, he ends up getting killed in the process.
Yeah, which is yeah, it was in front of Anakin and Rex when he eventually gets off. Yeah, there's a lot more to it, but that sort of builds the hate for Commander Fox. As we all know, he's sort of considered one of the hated clone troopers, primarily because of that act,
Yeah,
telling Fives, which was almost sort of like their thing against. I think they were trying to, because the Clone Wars, they try to pull a lot of like political things in that we deal with today.
mm-hmm.
I think right there they were trying to deal with like policing. Right there, it was like the whole shoot first thing,
Yeah,
which Commander Fox was like. They went in weapons raised with his guys, the Coruscant Guard. They were telling Fives like hands up, put your hands up, and then
mm-hmm.
Fives like don't touch me. And he starts reaching for the blaster next to him, and Commander Fox is like don't do it, don't do it. And then so Fives ends up grabbing his pistol, aims it towards Fox, and then Fox took the shot, but he didn't have
Mm-hmm.
his weapon done. It was a regular
It was
blaster
just
shot.
set to
He ends up
kill.
killing Fives. Yeah, which who knows, that decision may have been influenced by Palpatine's orders, but that was sort of just again one of those moments where people could reflect on the fact that that sort of stuff happens in the real world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it
Yeah,
was
that was definitely a key arc into. I mean, when you think about it, if that arc never existed, maybe other than comics, I don't know
I don't think we
exactly.
would have known
We would
about
have never
this.
known why the clone troopers ever, in a sense, turned bad on the Order 66. Because when you think about the prequels, are good. They have their flaws in like explaining that stuff. So this
Yeah, so Clone Wars
completely
really
fixed it
helps.
all.
Yeah, so Clone Wars really helps clear everything up.
Yeah, I mean that is for sure.
All right, so Next up, we got the Mortis arc from season 3. This was also another one that was 3 episodes long, but this is when Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Ahsoka all made it to this place called Mortis, which was home to the son, the father, and the daughter. Oh boy,
This
it was
this
it was
was
an
almost like
interesting one.
their way of like trying to visually represent through these actual people the balance of the force in the galaxy.
Yeah, these are the embodiment of the Force. And
Yeah, see the
so,
dark side, who was represented by this guy named the Sun, the light, which was represented by the daughter,
and then
and
the
sort of the
balance
person who
between
keeps it all in
both.
check. Yeah,
Balance between both was the father. So I will say that this was one of the another one that I found to be interesting and is in my personal top 3 favorite Clone
yeah.
Wars
You
arcs.
you ended up convincing me to put it up this high, and as I thought about it more, I sort of realized why.
Yeah, because it's like this is also kind of like to prove that Anakin is actually the chosen one, and that they just do so much going on. Like at first they don't know where they are. They're just at this mysterious planet that they crashed at. And then as the arc goes on, they continue to oh, what is it? They continue exploring and understanding what this is all about. And Anakin then has to prove that he is the chosen one and will bring balance to the Force, which he does. Thank gosh.
But he sort of realizes that he sort of is angled more towards the dark side, though, with his actions.
Yes, exactly. And so then
I
there's
mean,
this
there's
whole
a lot that happens, but
thing.
a lot of it is just talking about like a part of it is also like a bit of a moral lesson that they're trying to teach in this episode arc, which was like how much good can you have, how much bad can you have, and like I'm gonna start with the father figure who is supposed to balance the force. For a lot of people, you could say, oh, he's a bystander, and he's
Mm-hmm.
not really doing much. Like he's not choosing a side, and sometimes with a conflict, whether if you don't choose a side, you're helping one of the sides in the end. But what you realize is his job is, in this sense, to keep peace between the two sides,
Yes.
and that's when you show the son, who's obviously much more on the dark side, and he's stubborn towards doing evil things. I'll just put it that way. It's way more complicated than that. But then you also have the light side, which is the daughter, who we know is the better side. But in a sense, she's also stubborn in the fact that she's stuck into just doing like her things. Like yes, they're good, but sometimes they don't. Like I think about decisions in real life. Like yeah, sometimes there's good decisions, but they don't include everyone and stuff like that. So the whole thing was like these like the son and daughter, they love each other is in the fact that they're siblings. Like this
Mm-hmm.
they're family,
But
but
they
they're
still
also
don't
very
like
much
each
against each
other.
other. So you have a father who's trying to balance it all, and so they, from what I was reading and stuff, I was sort of realizing the fact that this was sort of represented as if you were going to put their characters in. Obi-Wan, in a sense, was the father figure in the
Mm-hmm.
fact that he was sort of cool, maintained, trying to keep things balanced. Ahsoka was the light and the daughter, and Anakin was the son in a sense. And a
Yes.
lot of it was just trying to, and a lot of it was trying to keep these three together. But what we soon realize in the Clone Wars is Ahsoka goes away, in a sense. Anakin becomes Darth Vader. He goes away,
Mm-hmm.
and Obi-Wan goes away to exile himself on Tatooine. And so we have these three that are meant to be together, sort of like this family, the father, son, and daughter, which
Mm-hmm.
which they show that they eventually all die in this arc. That all happens. They don't all die, but like they all get split up, just like this happens between
Right.
Anakin, Ahsoka, and Obi-Wan. I know that was long, but that's just again sort of just trying to show the balance of everything
Right.
in a
Right.
different way that we hadn't seen before in Star Wars media.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well,
I know I took a lot.
it's
Took a
okay.
lot
It's
of
okay. It's okay.
you want to add, but
Let's see. No, I don't really have anything else. All right. Moving on to the top third. The third best was the Umbara arc. This was something that Kyle was really into. So feel free to expand on
Well,
that a little bit.
I mean, you're definitely welcome to say
Oh,
what you
well.
want to. I mean, I was just saying this because I mean, part of our criteria was like, what could we rewatch? And the Embar episodes, part of me was just choosing it for how fun they are to watch, especially since this is one of the few episodes where group of episodes, 4 episodes in season
Mm-hmm.
4, where it was like very life of Rex, multiple named characters that we learn and come back to, such as Rex, Fives, I'm sorry, Dogma, Tup, Hardcase, Jesse, and even they mentioned another named character named Sergeant Apo, who we had only ever seen in Revenge of the Sith. He was apparently like one of the main 501st troopers
Mm.
leading the attack on the Jedi Temple. But regardless, it was just this whole big sort of battle story, like almost like a war movie, just focusing on this group of clone
Mm-hmm.
troopers as they navigate this massive invasion of a planet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it was unfortunately Anakin had to well leave for some other important business, and because
Well,
of
yeah,
that they
most
had
famously, you have the landing scene, which is in a sense almost, I don't know if like their version of like a D-Day landing almost, but like
maybe
they have this massive landing scene that Anakin leads, and like you said, Anakin gets called away to the back to Coruscant during the battle, and so one of the guys that you had mentioned was Pong Crow, who's this sort of very, I don't know, ruthless Jedi in a sense. He gets put in charge of this whole
and
invasion.
he ends up causing the clones to go against each other, both the 501st and the 212th.
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton to it. I
And
mean, he's such an iconic character for the fact that he has 4 arms, but he holds 2 double lightsabers, correct?
yes, he holds two
Yeah,
double
which is
lightsabers,
also
one
super
blue, one
crazy.
green.
It was
Yeah, and
almost
he
like the equivalent of like General Grievous in some sense. People were calling it.
yes, exactly, and it was just so so crazy. But
Hmm.
and he did it for a reason because he knew of the plan that Sidious and Dooku had in mind. So he assumed that he would be able to like join them in some way, shape, or form.
Actually, I didn't realize that he actually knew about the plan.
Yeah, he knew about it. Something. I
Oh.
forgot what he said, but it was.
Well, what they actually said in the episode, from what I remember, was the fact that like he had been in contact with Dooku, and he was pretty much to please him. Now, if he did know about the plot, the whole Order 66 plot, I guess this could make sense in the fact that the whole plot, Order 66 plot, was to kill all Jedi. But if he can make himself an exception, then he wouldn't be killed.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
The Umbara definitely had a ton, especially with the fact that Umbara was a planet. It was completely like dark, and I mean, it had tons of like forest, but it was like all these black sort of trees, very like black, red, and blue were like the colors. Oh, what was it called? Oh, the Umbarans were nicknamed the Shadow People, which they were like they almost looked like humans, but they pretty much had these like gas helmets on because they couldn't breathe the air. But they were like this very
Mm-hmm.
advanced society with ships that had weapons that the clone troopers and us as viewers had never seen before, massive walking tanks, and it was very very cool to see. That's for sure. That introduced a whole different, oh, like the caterpillar almost tanks, those things.
Mm-hmm.
Like they introduced so many different weapons and vehicles, and it's just in this small arc. It was very cool.
Hmm. Yeah, and I also thought what was funny was the when the clones tried to pilot the Umbarans flying vehicles. It was like, oh, this ain't so bad. But then it just
Oh, yeah.
escalates, and it's like, oh God, what are we doing?
Oh, they're like floating around. I mean, all of that I mean, that's crazy that they thought of that when you think about that, especially for Star Wars.
Oh yeah.
Like they were not afraid to push the boundaries of like what was in Star Wars. I mean, it wasn't always for the good, but like this definitely
Mm-hmm.
showed that it worked out. That's for sure.
Yeah. It was just.
Yep, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. So all right,
Last two. Oh,
last
geez.
two. Oh boy.
Number
So the
two.
number two is the Ahsoka fugitive arc, where Ahsoka is falsely accused for a crime she did not commit. Oh boy, that.
4 episodes in season 5. This was probably, if anything, the most important before. I don't know, but probably I'll definitely say this before the finale came out in 2021, right?
2020.
Oh, whatever.
It's
At the
okay. It's
time
okay.
when season 5 came out, 2014, no, 2013. This because at this time they had announced that the show was gonna get canceled after a year. This was probably the most important arc of the whole show, in my opinion, because this explained why Anakin, who he had a Padawan, why you never saw Ahsoka in the Revenge of the Sith, for example,
Mm-hmm.
and how he sort of became distrustful of the Jedi Council. This really packed a lot into these 4 episodes, and in my opinion, are the most crucial,
Mm-hmm.
arguably the most crucial in the whole show, actually, including season 7, probably.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this was like it further kind of showed like are the Jedi really the keepers of the peace that they say they are, or have they been blinded by the war and violence of the past several years?
Yeah, I mean, again, just taking on more political stuff, which I think is something super cool. They were showing anti-war protests, and
Yeah.
they were showing the fact. I mean, it had to do with how there was this bomber on the Jedi Temple, who it was through uh,
Mm-hmm.
very inhumane. It was done in a very inhumane way, but it was all to protest the war and the Jedi's involvement. Pretty much saying that, like you said, like the Jedi aren't peacekeepers now; they're warmongers.
And that they. Oh, what was I just about to say? Come on, brain. What was I just about to say? And how it starts off being like the Jedi are in charge of like finding Ahsoka and investigating what's taking place, but then it's like we can't allow that. It's time for the government to investigate this.
Before that, I feel like it's worth mentioning, just for like
Ah,
in
go
order of
ahead.
events, that Ahsoka, for those of you who don't know, Ahsoka was blamed for this attack after uh, there's more parts to it, but pretty much she gets framed for this whole attack.
Yeah, and she
So
after
she's on the run, and then like Aiden just said, she gets she eventually gets recaptured. You could say back in the
yeah
hands of the Jedi Council, but the Jedi Council is pressured by the Republic military to, or the Senate actually. I don't know if it was actually
to
Senate.
remove her from the
Maybe it was the House
council, remove
themselves.
her from the order.
Yeah, pretty much expel her, and so it was a big sort of emotional moment for her, and especially Anakin, who Anakin is probably like, I don't know if like and like
Mm,
I hate to say it this way, but like with the Jedi, like being like a cult member, but like he was, if anyone, probably the most devoted to the Jedi Order. Like he like
mhm.
that was his. He even talks about like that's his life. That's like what he believes in, and like he'll defend it no matter what. And
Right.
I don't mean to use throw out the word cult like it's something bad, but like that's just like he is dedicated. And so when he heard
Yeah.
about Ahsoka, when he was there watching Ahsoka get expelled, he was furious.
Yes.
But yeah, and then yeah, you can continue on. Because I cut you off. Because that leads
Yeah, and
next to
then it
trial.
just it leads up to the trial. Again, Ahsoka is expelled from the Jedi Order. She
Well,
She
that way, so that a Senate tribunal could
could
formally try her in
actually,
the courts.
yeah, and so Anakin is still quite suspicious. He goes doing some snooping around on his own, runs into Ventress. Oh yeah,
Oh yeah,
earlier on, Ventress runs into Ahsoka, and they end up helping each other out.
yeah.
And then this unknown person knocks out Ventress, takes her mask and lightsabers. Ahsoka's captured, and then the events we just talked about happen. And then Anakin runs into Ventress again, and he finds out that someone else was involved.
Well, Ventress reveals that it's Barriss Offee, who
Yeah,
is we mentioned earlier is one of Ahsoka's best friends, and
and
they find out it's because Ventress had overheard a conversation where Ahsoka had mentioned Barriss's name and that she was talking with Barriss for directions
yeah,
and help. But
it
it's
is
really
then.
Barriss just sending Ahsoka into traps and leading her in the wrong direction.
Yeah, and Anakin then meets with Barriss, being like, "I need to talk to you about this. What have you told Ahsoka?" And then it becomes this whole big fight between Barriss and Anakin, proving that she was the culprit behind the bombing of the Jedi Temple and framing Ahsoka for her crimes. And again, when she is defeated and brought before the Senate, she confesses, Barriss, that she did it because the Jedi have lost their way, and that they are becoming warmongers instead of the Jedi who are supposed to keep the peace.
Yeah. So at that point, Ahsoka is proved innocent, but there's just this, and Anakin. I mean, you see this smile on his face of him, I did it, I proved Ahsoka innocent. I've saved the day, but at the same time, Ahsoka just has this. I mean, everything that she just went through, she was framed, expelled from the Jedi Order.
And
Her best friend, she finds out betrayed her. She is just.
yeah,
I don't know.
just so much happened to her.
Yeah.
And when she is offered a place back in the Jedi Order, she kindly refuses it. Well, and that's mostly because and that's mostly because the council turned their back on her. Well, that's what she assumes. And
well, yeah. Well, also even in their chance to explain, Mace Windu, there's a point where the music becomes a little more darker.
yeah,
Mace
and
Windu tries to play it off as a test for her. That's what it was. Wow, they could have just explained that.
That's dumb.
But they didn't. Yeah. So again, just showing the flaws of the Jedi Order.
yeah,
And she sees that, and so she
leaves voluntarily.
Walks off into the sunset, pretty much.
Anakin tries to argue that the Jedi is her people and that the temple is her home, but she argues that it isn't, and she needs to find herself in some way. Yeah. And God, that crushed me, man. That crushed me.
Oh yeah. Well, that's definitely one of the most unique themes, the music they played behind it. That was actually one of the ones. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It was something. I don't really know how to form the words for that, but that was.
Mm-hmm.
That was the clip that everyone would look up if they wanted to cry.
And
yeah.
Finally, to the number one best, The Mandalore and Order 66 arc of Season 7.
Final episodes of Season 7 and the entire show of it all.
Oh my god, it was the best.
Yeah,
the best of the Clone Wars.
Explaining for this because
everyone knows. Most Star Wars fans know.
Yeah.
But yeah. Again, really wraps up the Clone Wars nice and neatly. Really shows what the best things that the Clone Wars can do as a show. Like the Battle of Mandalore with, oh god, the fight against Darth Maul versus Ahsoka. And then all of Order 66 taking place.
The clones just being used as tools of war.
Yes. And just all of it.
everything about the
It also
last
shows,
bit.
in a sense, Death Watch, the group that the ones that stayed with Darth Maul, how they were being used as cannon fodder as well by
Yeah,
Darth Maul.
yeah, and even the what is it? I'm trying to think. Yeah, and all the events of Order 66 going down, the clones turning against Ahsoka, Ahsoka managing to save Rex from the
Yeah,
inhibitor
that
chip,
definitely
and
brings
all
stuff up
that.
about
Just
the
the
fact that like,
end of
hey,
it.
Rex survived.
Yeah, and so
Again, really good. Really, really good.
Yeah. Jeez, that is the list, folks. Four arcs.
And it
That's
took
how
us
many
all.
total that the Clone Wars offered, and that is our list.
Yep,
I
that's
think that was
it.
very comprehensive, and
Holy crap. I
I
am
mean, yeah,
so
that took
ready.
a while, but I think it was worth showing you all that like they they put in some amazing work into these arcs, and yeah, and I mean this is subjective, but yeah, we took the time to break this down and sort of think about the fact that like what were the most significant and the most important. I mean, maybe you could argue that Embar in the top five isn't the most significant to the whole story, but
Yeah.
I think that's one of the most important for building on Rex's character
Oh, yes.
because that's what this TV show is about, in my opinion. Is the whole show is about building on Rex, a clone trooper, and the Republic, and Ahsoka, Anakin's Padawan,
Mm-hmm.
and then they fill in the gaps all over that because the movies are about Anakin and Obi-Wan. I mean, yes,
Right.
they do have their own episodes in this, but that's in my opinion, that's what this is all about: is explaining the fact that Anakin had a best friend, clone trooper, and he
Mm-hmm.
had a Padawan. He had a Padawan at one point. So it's yeah.
Who was like
That's
a
all I gotta say
sister
for that.
to him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
Okay.
that's oh god, okay.
Come on,
I'm
folks.
That's all
We're
folks.
done.
That's all for this episode. We have been sitting here for a good over 2 hours at this point, and I am ready to go eat some lunch. So thank you all
That
so
is
much for
very
listening and
true.
watching. If you guys are very excited for what's next for all of our YouTube watchers, make sure to hit that subscribe button and hit all notifications so you don't miss any future episodes. And for those of you listening on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts, just make sure to follow so you don't miss anything new.
Oh yeah, make sure to follow us on Instagram. And again,
Oh, yes,
as usual,
that too.
feel free to submit any topics or ideas that you feel like you want us to cover. We're open to new ideas all the time.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, we really hope you like this episode. Share it around with friends who are Star Wars fans or who just want to hear cool podcasts about movies and film. I mean, we're here to entertain, and we hope you guys enjoy.
And so with that being said, thanks again for watching, and may the Force be with you.